What is your haha wait your serious moment? When I was in high school I received a message over MSN from a buddy saying, Mitch is dead. Thinking he got into trouble, I responded with, ahaha what did he do? It turns out, he had a brain aneurysm while driving home from school. Yeah, I don't blame you for answering that way. Who sends an MSN message to break that kind of news? Found out my best friend died that way. From his brother no less. Not a great experience. I asked a coworker with what his son's name was, and he answered Legolas. After 2 seconds of laughing I realized he wasn't laughing. His son is actually named Legolas. Same here. I met a little boy named Merlin and kinda insulted his parents with my reaction. I was walking my dog a few weeks ago and came face to face with a guy with a small toddler and an Afghan hound. My dog can be funny with dogs he doesn't know, so I grabbed his collar as we approached. The guy saw what I'd done and so said loudly, Merlin, stop, and grabbed his dog and picked up the toddler. As we passed I said, that's a great name for a dog. He looked insulted and said, Merlin is my son's name. Someone once said to my friend, wait, you're Chinese? I always thought you were Asian. I actually have a very similar story. One time this girl asked me if I was Chinese or Asian, and I was confused, so I was just like, Asian, because it was more general, and then she was like, oh, okay. So what part of Europe is Asia? We were 15. This is fascinating to me because this person obviously has some kind of global geography set up in their head that they are sure about, but it's just so wrong. This was a few years ago. I forgot how the topic was brought up, but I clearly remember my older sister saying, there aren't any modern buildings in Egypt, just pyramids. Well, that's why the pyramids are so big. They have to house the whole Egyptian population. They just live in smaller pyramids inside the bigger pyramids. It's a giant pyramid scheme. I came into my job and my boss was running a bit late for an unknown reason. Now, my boss is the type of person to joke about anything, no matter how serious it is, and will pull it off with a straight face. We never really take him seriously, unless it is directly related to work. He comes in, after being late and after a bit, just casually says our close coworker had passed the previous night. I literally chuckled and said yeah, sure, and blew it off. He then said that he died from a heart attack before he was set to go out with his buddies during the evening. I then said, oh wait, are you actually serious? And he almost started crying right there and said yes. I miss that man to this day. Really chill guy with some cool hobbies and volunteer work. I also feel so bad for my boss because they had known each other for years. Friend 1. Hey man, how come you decided to shave all your hair off? Friend 2. The chemo kind of decided for him. Friend 1. Frick off Joe. No, seriously though, how come? Me. He's actually not joking. Funniest crap that ever happened to me. An intern at the vet I work at was a very sheltered Mormon. He came to work one day panicked. He had his first kiss the night before, asked the girl to marry him, and was concerned about his wedding date. He was absolutely convinced that he got her pregnant by kissing her. Absolutely convinced. It took me a long time to register what he was panicked about because it sounded so absurd. He'd delivered hundreds of kittens and puppies by then. I just thought he had also learned about human reproductive anatomy as well as animals by then. Reminds me of middle school. My friends and I grew up sheltered Christians. I was the least sheltered, as my parents still believed in science and dinosaurs, and my sex ed talk with them was informative and normal, and featured all of the scientifically appropriate names for genitals and whatnot. They didn't want me to have sex, but they did me the decency of explaining how it worked, and that it wasn't bad. It was for people who had made a strong commitment to one another, and was fun when you did it right and were being smart. I didn't realize how lucky I was till a friend of mine panicked, asked me at lunch if it was true that a guy could get you pregnant through your genes. Insert my haha wait what moment, while she explains that she snuck out last night with a boy and they had a heated makeout sesh which involved some heavy petting. Her mom had given her the talk and had told her you could get pregnant even if both partners were wearing clothes. To this day I don't know if her mom was that sheltered as well, or if this was a malicious way to keep her daughter from screwing around, but I have never forgotten what seemed to my 14-year-old self as a great betrayal of trust between parent and child. And anyway, that'd be why she snuck out. If she had a normal mom, she could just introduce her to her boyfriend. To be fair, you can totally have sex with clothes on if the girl is wearing a skirt. Probably not what the mom meant though. Waking up from general anesthesia, one of the nurses by my hospital bed gently informs me that my heart had stopped while I was under. I thought I was dreaming for a while and didn't take it seriously. Then my dad showed up and I saw the panic on his face. Then I phoned my mum and she had obviously been crying her eyes out. Then I took it seriously. Damn, that's crazy. What were you in for? And how are you doing now? It was a tooth extraction, of all things. Done under gap because I have a bad needle phobia and reacted poorly to the laughing gas they tried first. It really should have been an in and out sort of thing, but a few minutes in, my blood pressure tanked and my heart stopped. I was given medication and chest compressions and my heart restarted quickly. They didn't even have to break my ribs for the compressions, though I did have some extremely painful internal bruising. I spent most of that day in the hospital. Initially it seemed that it had been an overpass stay, but the cardiologist assigned to me managed to figure out the cause of my heart stopping, and also that the odds of it happening again without further anesthesia were basically nil. So I got to go home that evening, under strict instructions to do nothing strenuous, to avoid alcohol and non-prescribed drugs, and to make sure someone could keep an eye on me. I live with my parents, so that wasn't hard. These days, it's mostly just a very interesting note in my medical history. Whenever new doctors see my medical notes, they have a moment of holy crap what? When they get to the stopped heart. It's fun to watch. When I learned I had totally forgotten to attend almost every single class in one of my college courses. I forgot I had enrolled in it. A classmate asked me, how where have you been? You're never there when the teacher's taking attendance. And I was like, haha funny. So anyway, wait frick. Luckily it was only about a month into the semester and I managed to bring it back up to a low B. This is an anxiety dream that tons of people get, and you literally live through it. That's terrifying. It's common. Interesting. I once had a terrifying dream that I was back on campus and one of my friends asked if I was headed to the final of class name. I had completely forgotten that I signed up for that class. Hadn't been to a single lecture, of course, and now I had to go take the final. Woke up in a cold sweat, and as I laid there in bed it took several long minutes before I even realized it was a dream. Finally, I thought, wait, I graduated from that place like 5 years ago. Coworker was telling me the world was flat. I'd never met a real flat earther in the wild before that. I had the same reaction when one of my close friends told me she's a flat earther. Took me a month of listening to her rant about it for me to realize she was being serious. Are you in New York City by any chance? Cause I just distanced myself from a really close friend because she wouldn't shut up about the earth being flat, something she discovered not too long ago. It's really sad coming from somebody that's otherwise smart. A random dude told me I'm girly because I know how to make scrambled eggs. New friend, I really shouldn't be doing so many extreme sports, but you gotta live your life, right? I'm gonna end up in a wheelchair by the time I'm 30. Me, I know, right? New friend, no I mean really, I have a degenerative disease that's going to ruin my body by my 30s, so I'm trying to live my life now. I bet that this is one of the memories that randomly comes back when you're trying to sleep. On the bright side, he's probably used to that reaction. My estranged auntie sending me a message to disinvite me to my sick but alive father's funeral because wait for it, I had lunch with my little half brother and sister and that is disrespectful to my father. My father never let me and half siblings meet before this lunch had occurred, and by meeting them, he disowned me. Literally, that's it. Just my up family. Should have had only one lunch. I was on a Christian camping week here in the UK. There were some Americans with us. I found a stone on the beach with some great fossils in it and was showing it to some kids. One of the Americans started talking about how God had put fossils in the earth. to mislead the vain who trusted their own observations rather than the Bible. I, naturally, thought he was joking and burst out laughing, and he was just so offended. He complained about me to the people running the camp, and they thought he was joking at first and laughed too. A friend of mine in high school was a very academically gifted kid, but had some questionable religious ideas. He told me the devil put fossils in the earth to tempt humans into believing science over the Bible. However, a few years later he saw a speaker and came at me with another gem. Since lizards never stop growing, then it's likely that, since everything lived so much longer in the past, that lizards would eventually just keep growing. Into what? A T-Rex gecko, of course. I asked him why it didn't happen anymore if you kept them alive long enough now, and he said nothing lives that long anymore. When I asked why though everything lived longer in the past, he told me because Moses lived to be 500 or something, so it was logical that all the other animals lived comparatively long lives, and Methuselah or someone else lived a long time. He was not amused when I pointed out the basis for his argument was an unsourced book I didn't believe in anyway. What is sad is he will become a speaker or scientist because people see how smart he is, and it gives more validity to his argument. I saw it all the time on videos that try to prove the world is 6,000 years old. When my 60-year-old father told me he broke his hip paragliding into the roof of his hotel. I've known people who broke their hip walking down a road. Your father is a badass. I broke mine by walking on my grandma's front lawn. I definitely prefer a cool story like paragliding. Years back I dated a girl who would lie compulsively about random things. The first big example, I went to her place. She'd just got Assassin's Creed for the first time and was really getting into the story. Like a week later she was telling me how she just discovered her family were related to assassins from Florence. I thought it was a joke, but turns out she was serious, had changed her surname to something Italian on FB, and had already spread the lie about on social media. In my head I was like, I literally watched you play Assassin's Creed last week, but she was gorgeous, way out of my league. So I put up with this and other crazy crap for another 6 months before I gave up. With a brain as dumb as hers, no amount of good looks makes her out of your league. I'd venture to say she's in a league of dumbasses all of her own. I hope she got some sense, tbh she was a nice person, just lived in her own world, haha. It's ridiculous that tampon ads aren't banned. The fact they're allowed in public just goes to show that women have too much power. This wasn't in response to a particularly graphic ad that pushed any boundaries. Just a generic type about comfort and reliability. Took me a while to realize that he wasn't joking. Those women and their damn tampon ads. Those women and their damn bleeding vags. Breaking news. People panic buying toilet paper. Me at home. Hahaha. Me at grocery store. Oh wait, you're serious? I feel this at a visceral level. When I realized it was real, no TP to be found, and people were talking about how many dozens of rolls they had, hordes, I would say that I had 2.x mega rolls left. Someone gave me a 12 pack of Angel Soft for my birthday, and I honestly am really grateful. My mom lost her job before Christmas, and when she was fretting about a gift for me, I told her I wouldn't say no to another bottle of nice smelling disinfectant spray, costing about $3. That's what I got for Christmas. 3 months on, we are stuck at home together, but the house smells like pina colada. Back in college, me and a few of my guys would get lunch every Tuesday. Me and 2 of the guys are there as normal and are waiting for our last guy, Todd. I start texting Todd and asking him about not being at lunch yet. The other guys start narrating what I should text, so I end up saying, Matt says get your Ollie Polly looking ass over here. Steve says that you're the personification of washing your hands and getting your sweater sleeves wet. It goes on like that for a bit. Then Todd calls me directly. He says he can't make it because his grandma died that morning and was headed home to see his family. The look on the other 2 guys' faces when I told them was priceless. Similar story. When I was in the reserves, I happened to overhear admin taking a call from one of our members named Montoya, real name. The admin guy answers the phone and cheerfully exclaims, Montoya. Are you Inigo Montoya? Did I kill your father and must prepare to die? Ha ha h. What? OMG. OMG, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And so on, for about 20 minutes. When he finally hung up, the admin guy soberly turned to me and said, "That was Montoya. He's not coming in today, his father died, and he's on the way to the funeral." Was working a job while in early days of college. It was in a popular American restaurant chain, where I had been successful as a host, cashier, waiter, and member of their retail store for just about a year. I accidentally forgot that I had swapped shifts with someone and missed the shift entirely. But I came in a few hours after it had started to sincerely apologize and let them know I was going home to change and I'd be right back. They brought me to the back and told me I was fired. I laughed at first because the boss was occasionally a bit of a jokester. Then I realized he was serious. To this day it gives me massive anxiety about underperforming in any job I have, because I believe I will just be fired for it and they'll move on regardless of my tenure or knowledge. One time I worked at a crappy restaurant, and after about a year of being a pretty stellar employee, I needed to take a shift off. I told my manager a month in advance that it was my dad's 50th birthday and I bought us tickets to see Tom Petty at the Hollywood Bowl. A week goes by and I told my boss that no one would cover my shift. Then a week after that I remind him again. And then I reminded him twice the week of my scheduled shift that I wouldn't be there. When I got back from the show, he called me in the office and told me I was being written up. I laughed at first too. Then I told him no way I was signing that write up and gave notice. Frick that place. Colleague's wife confronting me on speakerphone. "Are you having an affair with my husband?" My exact response was to roll laughing, managing to offend them both simultaneously. Good job, geek peeps. That was the perfect response. I see none other as acceptable. My favorite musician is David Hasselhoff. I laughed straight in her face. Mind you, this is 30 years ago, but even then. Was this person German? No, Dutch. Us Dutch are as baffled by our neighbor's obsession with the Hoff BTW. In middle school I had a habit of putting my foot in my mouth. Once I was in my English teacher's room finishing an assignment after school while she was talking to a parent. I finished and moved toward her desk, but stopped near her door so I wouldn't interrupt their conversation. As I was waiting, I could see directly to the girls' bathroom, where I saw a boy my age, but not a student, small school, pacing in front of the girls' bathroom. I thought it odd, and watched for a moment. Each time the door opened, he would peer as best he could into the bathroom, and I knew the JV cheerleaders were in there changing for practice. Alarmed I said, "Oh, there's a boy trying to look into the girls' bathroom." The teacher and parent stopped and quickly approached to watch the pacing boy. The parent then said, "That's my son." I started to laugh until I realized I was the only one. It was very awkward for a few moments till she excused herself, gathered her son, and left. The teacher still brings it up when I see her and laughs. For those of you curious of the outcome, he was on the spectrum and his sister, whom he idolized, was in there. He was waiting for her to come out. Is there a J in the alphabet? This was a year 12 student. Her name was Judith. You mean Judith? Judith. I listed my Ford Explorer for sale. A guy emailed me to trade his 2018 car Forte or something. I didn't really need one, since my fleet already had a 2013 car Forte, but he emailed me a few times saying he wants my Explorer, but owes money on his car. I said how much? He said it's an 8-year finance deal so need to pay in total $45k. And he wanted my car. I could buy that car right now for $25, $30k at the dealership brand new. He was dead serious. Holy crap. They were literally giving those cars away for free a few years ago if you bought another car, lol. There's a girl at work who used to call the icing sugar talcum powder. We didn't realize for weeks that she actually thought it was called that. She's actually a pretty switched on girl in general. She just has these weird things. TBH, I work in palliative care, and when we are doing a bed wash on a patient, we refer to talcum powder as seasoning. And then they said, don't leave your house for 2 weeks. When they told us that the elderly and vulnerable would have to self-isolate for 14 weeks, I thought it was some stupid tabloid pulling things out of their ass to get clicks. Nope, 14 weeks. When GameStop tried to categorize itself as essential business during a global pandemic, that's upper management actually running into consequences for their terrible decision making and panicking because they've always managed to avoid them before. When my friend told me she was getting a divorce, I literally laughed and said, "Oh, sure you are." Then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer. Not a trace of doubt in my mind. When Trump was running for president and then actually got elected, I'm not American and wasn't really paying attention to world politics, so I just thought it was a running meme that got out of hand, because obviously that wouldn't happen in real life. Wasn't until a friend brought it up in casual conversation that I realized it was real. I still don't think I fully processed it. As an American, me neither. For months after he got elected, every time I heard the phrase President Trump, I had this strong feeling of disbelief. Intellectually I knew he won, but some part of my brain kept going, really? Not mine but other half. When I proposed to her, I asked. She laughed then said, "Are you serious?" Then when I showed her the ring she realized. In her shock she said yes, and has probably regretted it ever since. Haha, no takebacks. You're brided, bitch. I understand people believing in the Bible, but it honestly never dawned on me that people took every story in it for truth instead of stories with morals as to how to lead your life. A coworker of mine mentioned how dinosaurs weren't real because they aren't mentioned in the Bible, and I laughed at his joke. He wasn't joking. This always irritates me. How is it possible to take the Bible literally when it has two creation stories? Does that not indicate it includes stories for the purpose of teaching morals rather than history? Most people who believe in the Bible probably actually haven't read it and instead just go to church without consciously registering what's being said by their pastor, assuming their pastor even reads direct from the Bible. One day my boss asked me if I'd be willing to do some testing for a new software our company had purchased. I already knew the program, so I said that was fine. He said I should expect to receive a meeting invite in the next day or so. The next morning I have a meeting invite and I accept. I didn't recognize anyone else who was invited, but assumed that they were from the vendor, which is normal. Time comes for the meeting and it's a dial-in sort of deal, which again is normal for this kind of thing. I dial in on time and everyone is saying their hellos and someone asks if I'm on the call. So I say yup, I'm here, and things get started. The call starts with discussing some coding issues, which is fine, but has nothing to do with me, so I figure they'll get to the testing stuff in a bit. That is until someone says, "Oh, resting fart face should look into that." At this point it dawns on me, this is not my meeting. So I said, "Sorry guys, but I think you have the wrong person." And there was stunned silence. "Who are you then?" they ask. I give my first and last name, title, and location. Then someone starts laughing. This was the person who sent the meeting invite. They were trying to invite two other people to the meeting, one with the same first name as me, and one with the same last name. Instead, he invited me, and apparently I sound just like one of those people, so no one suspected anything until I spoke up. I was taking a long leg cast off a kid about 2.53 years old. After I get the cast split open and pull it off, mother says, "Oh, his toe fell off." I'm like, "Hey, nice one." The kid was in the cast because his small toe had been nearly amputated and reattached. The doc was hoping what tissue was still connected would be enough to vascularize the distal portion. It wasn't, and the kid's toe died and fell off. Just letting a toe become necrotic sounds incredibly irresponsible and dangerous. Wouldn't there have been monitoring? I had an ex-girlfriend try to claim that we were common law married so she could sue for alimony in my house, despite not being together for a year, not living in the same home for any length of time, not sharing our financial situations with one another in the slightest, no shared bills, no joint account, etc. The basis for this was that I found it funny when friends joked that we were like an old married couple, and I didn't immediately clarify the situation to them, so that meant I'd accepted my role as her husband. Took a few court dates and she walked away disappointed, while I walked away with my legal fees and a little extra. I could have gone after her harder, but just what my lawyer got probably wiped out most of her savings and maximumed out her line of credit, so I'd have been paying my lawyer to try to wring blood out of a stone. Did she represent herself? I can't imagine what type of lawyer would take her case. A desperate one.